Yo guys, I got a spark which I'm going to use to ignite the fire for another top 10 Thursday. Today we're going to be looking at the top 10 Skylanders NPCs, which means that this list is only going to count for characters in the entire Skylanders franchise that you cannot play as, hence where the term non-player character comes into play. So any NPC from any Skylanders game counts towards this list so long as they are from the mainline console games, meaning that no NPCs from the 3DS or mobile games are included towards this list, mind you, because they're just simply put not as memorable as the other NPCs from the console games are, and that's one of the main factors going into this list that will determine where on the list these NPCs land. Their memorableness, how much I remember them after I've moved on to a different game, you know, how much they just linger in your mind, as well as the impact they've left on the franchise, and generally just how fun they are to interact with, how fun they are when they interact with other NPCs, you know, the chemistry they have with you as a player and with fellow NPCs within the game, mind you. So one final thing before we actually get into the list is that I'm also going to be taking into account voice acting, so the voice actors which did an amazing job bringing their characters to life will also help if their characters ascend lower onto the list, and of course that's a good thing because the lower you are on the top 10, the better than the other iterations you are. Without further ado, let's roll the intro and get into today's top 10 Thursday. Let's start off with a few honourable mentions. So in no particular order, we're going to start off with General Robot, a very well voice acted character. His design is very unique, the fact that he's a robot with a medal on his chest to kind of signify a general, so to say. And of course his voice acting truly brings a lot to that personality and makes him very distinctive in the whole of the Skylanders franchise. It's a shame we didn't see more of this NPC, especially since he had such great chemistry with Hugo. You know, a robot with emotions like this is something very, very cool to see. And when, of course, Chaos's lair is discovered upon at the end of Spyro's adventure, and General Robot points that out and, of course, creates strategy around it, once again leading back to that idea that he is a general, mind you, and, of course, Hugo's reaction to his orders, mind you. It's all quite hilarious stuff. So again, it creates great chemistry between the two characters, which is very fun to watch, mind you. And that alone, the fact that General Robot puts Hugo at ease after he positively wants to kiss him, and the hilarity that ensues is very close to garnering General Robot a spot on the list for that and that alone. But moving on, there's also Persephone, or Persephone as I like to call her, just to trigger people, and you're going to notice that a lot with these honourable mentions. But anyway, with Persephone, she introduces a whole new mechanic to Skylanders, and that's the upgraded mechanic, and without that mechanic, of course, Skylanders wouldn't be as magical and as fun as it actually is. So Persephone being the sole introducer of that, and being what we establish with that entire mechanic, mind you, just goes to show how great of the NPC this is. In fact, because she was absent in Swap Force, it made the upgrading far less fun and truly made it feel as though something was missing from the game. And so the fact that you can have those feelings due to just one simple NPC being taken out of the game truly shows just how much of an impact she left on the franchise. Unfortunately, whilst her speech being, of course, more Yoda-esque style, and unique in comparison to the NPCs, whilst that's cool to listen to, it is a little bit distracting, and unfortunately Persephone just doesn't really have much of a character arc, so you're not really invested in her character long term. It's just fun to interact with her in order to acquire your upgrades, mind you. But apart from that, there's not really much interest to her. She's just really what we associate upgrade mechanics with, and without her, the upgrading mechanics feel empty and less fun to utilise. But moving on, we have T-Bone. T-Bone. I love this guy's sense of humor. It's so charismatic and unique to him, since, you know, he's a skeleton that makes humor about dead people, because he is a dead person, so it's okay to make jokes about dead people when you are dead yourself, right? So the irony behind T-Bone's joke style means that his comedy truly does land. Again, it feels distinctive to him, and he's just a really fun character to be around. You know, he's never dead weight. He's always cracking jokes and, you know, having something to laugh over, so to say. But moving on, once again, we have Arbo, son of Larbo. I can't say his name. I can't use his voice even all that well, or I can't mimic it, so to say. But that's what makes Arbo such a fun character, the fact that he has such a fun, unique voice. Props to the voice actor for bringing so much energy and charisma to this character. That's the main reason why I find him so memorable, because he just has that really memorable voice to him. And his design is also really interesting in terms of the pre-production of Skylanders, since it was originally a design considered to be a Skylander, but in the end, after they chose not to make him a Skylander, they incorporated him as an NPC into the game instead. That's very interesting development for the pre-production side of Spyro's Adventure, mind you. So that alone and that intrigue and that voice of Arbo, son of Larbo, is what introduces him as the honourable mention on the list right here. But moving on, we have the Brain. I love the fact that he changes to the side of good after he realises how much of a jerk Chaos is. So that development arc is something very invested in, and Brain is honestly one of the best parts of Imaginators, because his voice actor brings so much energy and charisma to the character. He has such great chemistry with Chaos, and ultimately it's his redemption that draws his character to full circle and really develops him in some very unique, well-written ways. In fact, he's one of the only parts of Imaginators that is well-written, so credit where credit is due. Brain is a pretty awesome NPC. But moving on, we have Drillex. It's a mother frickin' drill that sings for a boss fight. Need I say any more? And then we also have the Skylanders that were the NPCs of Imaginators, the main ones in fact. And the main reason why they're merely honourable mentions is because it was such a lazy way to cop out of creating new NPCs for Imaginators. One thing I do like about the Skylanders being NPCs though is that we have their returning voice actors. But unfortunately, you know, this was also made to coincide with Skylanders Academy. But Skylanders Academy had these characters, or at least most of them, voiced by completely new people, so the voices across mediums don't match. So I suppose maintaining the voice actors for the games is cool, but if they were really trying to tie this in with Academy, I would have loved to have seen Jonathan Banks play Rupture instead, because he brought so much to that role for Rupture in Academy. In fact, he even won awards for it. So again, the voice acting, whilst nice, having it return could have been much nicer and much more consistent with other media to come within the Skylanders franchise. And it was just a really lazy way to cop out of creating newer NPCs, and it makes you really miss the old ones, because when you play Skylanders, you know, you want to play as the Skylanders but interact with the completely unique NPCs of the game. You don't want to interact with characters that you can play as. That's just far more lame, so to say, and less well written. So I love the fact that I praise Imaginators for one well written NPC, and then gone ahead and bashed them for next moment for having lazily written NPCs. But hey ho, these still deserve their honourable mentions for being cool in concept alone. Moving on, we have Ermit, which I really like this guy's main personality traits. Since he hates clouds, he finds them to be incredibly evil and blames them for anything that goes wrong, despite the fact that the Dread Yacht itself is cursed. But still, it is very charismatic and unique to him. Props to the voice actor for really bringing his character to life, making him feel distinct. I love Hermit for Hermit, even if other people don't. But speaking of NPCs people tend to hate, we have Diggs for our final honourable mention. Now, I love this guy for one sole reason, because so many people hate him, and so because so many people hate him, liking on the character, in fact, loving the character, makes it so easy to trigger every single one of those people in large quantities with ease, mind you. So, of course, creating an interaction out of the community and having such an easy tool to trigger people with is ultimately what makes Diggs such a fun character to like, because so many people hate on him. It's always fun to like the stuff that people hate upon, just to trigger the people who hate it, mind you, and that's the exact case with Diggs right here. Without further ado, we're going to move on to the list itself. Coming in at number 10, we have the Collector. Now, I love this character. First of all, I can relate to this character since she loves collecting things and I too love collecting things. So right off the bat, I'm invested in her because I can relate to her traits, mind you. Second of all, her voice acting is so phenomenal. Not only does the voice itself match the character, but the voice actor was able to deliver her lines with such energy and charisma. It makes this character so fast paced in their speech and exciting to watch. And the fact that she's effectively kind of like warping the level around you whilst you're in the garden trying to traverse it, she's there trying to stomp you, trying to turn on water geysers to flood you out and everything. So above all, it makes it very interesting how she shapes the level, and that, you know, she has this obsession with collecting you, as we have our own obsessions of collecting Skylanders, mind you. So there's that awesome relatability behind it, but it's just the energy and charisma that this character has. It's such a shame she's limited to only one level, because I would have loved to have seen this energy, this amount of energy and character even put into more levels in this game. And you know you have the makings of a good NPC when you want to see more of them than just for one level they are introduced in and limited to. Coming in at number 9, we have Cali, yet again another voice actress that does a great job bringing a lot of energy and life to the character. Her voice suits the character perfectly, mind you, to create for this very kind of warrior-esque, independent female character. And it's really important to have NPCs like this in Skylanders, because it allows the female fan base to have someone to really look up to, and that's one thing Cali is great at. She's great at being a role model to young girls due to her independence, her strength, her commitment. She has so much courage, and that really makes her stand out as a character because she has her own unique traits, while still being an absolute badass. And ultimately, she has some amazing chemistry with Flynn. Her kind of headstrong nature, kind of hiccuping off the back of Flynn's arrogance is just something really exciting to behold, because they have such great chemistry. They truly sell their friendly type relationship. Of course, Flynn tries to take it further than just friends, which Cali refuses, but that's perfectly in character for her. And that's ultimately what makes her work so well off of Flynn's personality, mind you, and makes her such a great character to watch alongside him. Coming in at number 8, we have Mags. Her design alone is awesome, with her, of course, having the eyepiece for her invented work, the giant hat, the classical inventor's robe, and the staff to go alongside it all. She really gives this idea of kind of like a steampunk-esque engineer, because that's exactly what she is. So her design is a reflection of her personality, mind you. And not to mention, she has some really great jokes, some really great one-liners, like the fact that she calls pirates blueberries, and of course fiddlesticks and hot buttered toast and everything. You know, she has the most quotable one-liners which bring a lot of character and memorability to that character. So above all, I find her slightly more memorable than Cali, and I also love the fact that she's an inventor as well. That's something I connect to much more personally than what I can with Cali. So that's ultimately why she's lower on the list, but still, she could have been doing with a much greater arc, and it's a shame that what most people remember her for was when she was hypnotized by Luminous and the Sunscraper Spy, because the Skylander Boy and Girl made such a big deal out of that, which ultimately is what made that level so interesting, because Mags is so out of character there that you can tell. And it's so great when you have NPCs where you remember their character so well and so fondly that when something's up, something's different, you notice it immediately. And that's exactly what happened with the Sunscraper Spire, showing us that we have a strong connection to Mags and can easily tell when something's not right, because it's just different to what it would be otherwise for Mags we normally know and love, so to say. But yes, that's all of those things in combination makes Mags an absolutely exceptional NPC. The fact that she's first of all a badass independent woman the same way Cali is, and then there is of course also the fact that I connect to her due to her inventiveness. She has great design, and her one-liners are so memorable and add so much personality to the character, a personality which you remember and you get to know and love, so that then when it's mixed up, you can instantly tell because of the connection you have with this character already. Coming in at number 7, we have Sharpfinn, first introduced in Motleyville, which is a level you see gameplay for you right in front of your eyes. Regardless, what makes Sharpfinn so great is not what he says, because first of all, his dialogue is very, very well written and adds a lot of personality to the character, and that's of course exemplified by the excellent voice acting work with a voice that really suits Sharpfinn, and his dialogue delivery really adds a lot of energy to the character and makes him distinctive too, because Sharpfinn is a one-of-a-kind NPC with the fact that he's not truly good. He's in it for his own benefit, so to say, rather than the benefit of Skylands. He's greedy, and yet he only ever alludes to his crime and his villainous type side. There's a bit of balance of it in Superchargers, which is why I prefer his rendition in Superchargers, because it's still he's still a soldier of fortune, as he puts it. So the dialogue is well written and maintains his character consistently, with some great development shown between Swap Force and Superchargers, when he's far more heroic in dire times, mind you, such as Superchargers. And it's not only what he says, but how he says it, which adds so much personality to the character, since he's a very mysterious character that seems to love alluding to things and shrouding his quotes in mystery rather than being upfront and obvious about it. You know, he's not like Flynn that's obvious about everything he says. No, he's far more secretive about it. Coming in at number 5, we have Hugo. Now, what I love about Hugo is, first of all, his undying loyalty. No matter what he's offered, he will remain by your side. So the fact that, you know, you can always count on Hugo to help you out and bring his brains into battle in order to achieve success is just something very, very heartwarming to watch unfold before you. He also has, of course, that really stereotypical bookworm design, which suits his voice very well. His voice is very befitting of a character, mind you, adds a lot of energy and charisma to the character as it stands. And once again, it's a character that I connect to on a deep personal level, because I myself am a bit of a nerd and a bookworm, so I enjoy watching Hugo use his smarts to, you know, outthink and outwit his opponents. What really puts Hugo this at this point in the list is because he has such a great showcase in Academy with a really great arc as he becomes more confident in his abilities and proves to the Skylanders about his bravery and everything. So despite him being a little Marbu that doesn't have any sort of powers to his name, he still shows strength and, above all, commitment to his friends. Like I said, when it comes to his loyalty, he does not let you down. So that undying dedication and loyalty is ultimately what makes Hugo such a heartwarming character to be around. He's so well vocally performed, has a great arc in the Academy, as well as a great arc throughout the whole of the Skylanders games, because once again in the Skylanders games he does start to become more and more confident in his own abilities, and more courageous as the games go on, as he's willing to put himself in danger more frequently in order to help save the day, so to say. So yes, I really enjoy Hugo's character, and I'm really glad he was the main NPC even going through the whole of Spyro's Adventure, because it only makes sense that his brain and him being the man with a plan was the one guiding you through it, so to say. So because of that, you also have that deep personal connection with him, because he is the one guiding you through that first game, the game you start out with, the game which introduced you to Skylanders, and who better to introduce you to the whole of Skylanders with than Hugo himself, right? For number 6, we have Buzz right here. Now, what I love about Buzz is that he parallels Flynn's personality with his cockiness and arrogance going into scenarios, claiming that his way is, of course, the superior way. And because of that, he bounces off of Flynn's personality very, very well indeed, creating some great chemistry between the two of them. Buzz also has an excellent voice actor with a voice that really suits the character and brings a lot of life and energy to the role, mind you, one that a role that is reprised for every Skylanders game from Trap Team onwards. So that's of course something nice to see, because hearing his sweet voice is so distinctive and cool to listen to on a sounding level. It's a perfectly edited voice to the character, so to say. And as I was mentioning before, Buzz has those parallels to Flynn, mind you, in the fact that they have very similar personality type traits, which of course lead to very interesting theories amongst the Skylanders community, such as Buzz being Flynn's dad. Those theories alone just cast further intrigue and investment upon Buzz's character. And it's just so much fun to watch his character bounce off Flynn with two exact same personalities, especially when Cali's in the middle of both of them, with both of them acting as if they are both a superior being, and both of them acting as if they have no idea that they're as arrogant as they are, and then Cali having to deal with them both at the same time, and then, whilst they might think that they are different, they are the exact same, they don't see that, but Cali does, so the trio in and of itself is very investing and fun to watch unfold before you, as the characters' personalities really bounce off one another. So Buzz not only makes the chemistry between Flynn and Cali more realizable, but it also expands upon it and makes it even more fun to watch due to just Buzz and Flynn's characters getting along far too well, whilst at the same time just being far too unaware of the situation they befall. They're the exact same character and they themselves don't know it yet. Coming in at number 4, we have Tessa. She just puts a smile on my face with her personality, mind you. She's such a character-driven NPC, with her voice actor bringing so much energy and life to the role, mind you. Her dialogue is excellent, with a hint of naivety, but at the same time, she's that really strong, independent, female badass warrior that we want to see out of these female Skylanders NPCs, characters for young girls to look up to, and Tessa is no different. She has some amazing chemistry with Flynn due to her natural naivety and her kind of eating into Flynn's lies, so to say. But she's just such a damn cool character. She has really cool things to say, some really great chemistry with Flynn, an amazing bond with Whiskers, mind you. Just seeing her as she pleads with joy after you rescue Whiskers from the likes of being evilized by Chaos's minions is just, it puts a smile on your face. It's a really heartwarming moment as you get to see this bond as it's torn through thick and thin, and just really pushed. And despite how much this bond is of course pushed, and how much this game might think it might tear it apart, they remain loyal to one another, and that's just so incredible. Tessa once again is a determined NPC that will stop at nothing even to help her friends and save the day. So her dedication and her loyalty and her courage on behalf of her people and her allies is something admirable and so damn fun to watch, mate. And her rise to becoming far less naive is some really great character development on her behalf. So she's well written above all, making her an excellent NPC and everything you look for in a female NPC in Skylanders, mind you. And ever since her introduction in the Trap Team, she's been a fan favourite, and it's so easy to see why. At number 3, we have none other than Flynn. Now, I've been talking about him earlier, about how he practically has chemistry with anyone because of his arrogance and cockiness when it comes to him truly believing that he is the best. It is not an act. He truly believes this, and this naivety in his own accomplishments creates for just such a character-driven, character. It allows him to have some really great chemistry with all of the other NPCs, which I truly cannot emphasize enough, despite the fact that I have repeated it thoroughly throughout this video. Flynn's voice actor is really fitting of a character and just adds so much chemistry to the character, because there's no way Flynn's personality could work without that excellent voice acting. He would come across as annoying otherwise and would lose his comedic flair immediately. But the fact that Trap Team kind of warps itself around Flynn's character and makes it so that the story scrolls are Flynn's lies rather than the actual traditional story scrolls, makes it so that the game has an even more comedic flair, since these scrolls are so in character for Flynn and have such amazing writing behind them, because they are such great expressions of his character, mind you. So I love Flynn's chemistry with absolutely everyone. I love the fact that ironically, he's one of the only characters in the Skylanders franchise that doesn't develop, despite being such a franchise mainstay. But that's because you wouldn't believe Flynn would develop, as cocky as a character he is. He thinks he's already perfect, so he can't exactly go anywhere up from there in terms of his character development. And whenever he claims he's going to become more humble in the next game, he just winds up losing all of that development altogether for the sake of his cockiness. And that's just something really intriguing about him, so to say. You invest in his character because he's so different to all of the other NPCs, and the fact that he doesn't grow, and when he does, you don't believe it at all, and it's so in character for him, so consistent, and so enjoyable above all. He's exciting, he's fun, he's well voice acted, he has chemistry with everyone. When you watch NPCs and Skylanders, you of course can't play with them, so you're invested in their characters by watching them, and Flynn, oh boy, he is a fun one to watch. Coming in at number 2, we have Gus Shanks, someone who very quickly became an ally after having been betrayed by Chaos in Superchargers, and so his chemistry with the whole of the Skylanders team, and of course him warming up to them and becoming integrated into their group of characters is just something so heartwarming to see, and it adds a lot of excitement and tension to the game, as you know, you're worried about whether you can trust Gus Shanks or not, or whether Chaos will ever take Gus Shanks back, because ultimately you feel sorry for him. He's out of a job which he loves, because at the end of the day, as much as Chaos annoys him and mistreats him, he still has that very special bond with Chaos. It's almost kind of like a family type bond, you know, as if Gus Shanks is his older brother, so to say, giving him guidance, if you please. And so that bond being explored so thoroughly in Superchargers is so investing, and it's very enjoyable to watch on behalf of Gus Shanks, and truly invests you further into his character as he develops, whilst he's away from Chaos and has been fired from him, to realise his purpose can exceed that of serving Chaos, but that's ultimately what he wishes to do, and that longing and that bond he shares with Chaos is, despite the fact that they are the villains of a franchise, it's just so well perfectly captured and very investing of a relationship that keeps you intrigued and constantly on the edge of your seats as you watch these cutscenes unfold before you. And worse yet, Gus Shanks gets all of the really emotionally driven moments within the game as he sacrifices himself in order to save the Academy, which is just such a gut-wrenching moment, because you've grown to love this character as part of your unit, and now the next thing you know, he's willing to sacrifice himself for it. Very powerful storytelling. It's so beyond words, so to say. That's why I'm kind of struggling with my words, because words truly cannot emphasize the amazingness of this NPC, which is why it's as low on the list as number 2, mind you. But of course, coming in at number 1 without a shadow of a doubt is our Lord and Saviour, Blobbers. What would we do without this guy and his insane power levels? He's effectively the Thanos of Skylanders, with just how powerful of an NPC he is. Honestly, Chaos would be screwed if he had to go against Blobbers. Instead, he gets the Skylanders because, of course, Blobbers wanted to offer him a much more fairer fight, so he stuck the Skylanders on them instead. But besides the memes that can be created from Blobbers' sheer amount of power and skill, he's just such an interesting NPC because, once again, he has a development arc, you know. In For Lost Imaginary Minds, it takes full advantage of this character arc because he's had enough of being shoved to the sidelines, of being mistreated. He's out to prove to Skylands his worth and his might, and oh boy, he does so successfully, since he's single-handedly Falcon punches the Roublemaker, so without his aid, the Skylanders once again wouldn't stand a chance without him. Once again, he's also very well voice acted. The voice actor really brings his character to life through his dialogue delivery, since he truly sells this kind of more weaker type nerdling character, and I find it funny how I use the term weakling, because whilst Blobbers might sound slightly weak, it's all an illusion to mask his power, so to say, which once again adds a lot of fun you have watching the character, just knowing his redemption he goes through in The Lost Imaginary Minds, and knowing just how worthy he is of power and might, and for things he can accomplish once he puts his mind to it. Once he stops relying on the Skylanders and stops becoming the laughing stock of a franchise. So yes, that's what makes Blobbers so fun to watch. The memes, of course, excel how fun he is, and the intrigue behind him as you look up these memes online and start to discover his true power levels being rivaled by that of, as I mentioned previously, Thanos. So Blobbers, without a doubt, my favourite Skylanders NPC. You truly feel for him when you leave him behind at Cutthroat Carnival. That is a truly devastating moment, and you kick in the music alongside that, and it instantly shrouds you with guilt, making Blobbers the one true hero of Skylands, as you realise that the Skylanders cannot take on the mantle without such an amazing character. If only he was an academy so they could flesh out his character even more, but they didn't want to make the show too perfect, so unfortunately they replaced him with the far inferior Gary. But that's basically going to do it for this top 10. Blobbers was probably a predictable choice for number 1 because he's just so epic that anyone who thinks he isn't the best NPC is just wrong. But regardless, I do really love Blobbers. Putting all the memes aside, you truly do feel when you leave him behind in Cutthroat Carnival for guilt, and the music on top of that just further adds further emotional investment into the character because you feel sorry for him. You feel like you're the one who's creating all of these bad situations for him, the situations that he himself does not deserve to have burdened himself with. So because of that, when he does eventually redeem himself, you feel like he earned it. Okay, you feel like he's truly came back and proven you as a player wrong for mistreating him if you have done such a thing. So Blobbers, absolutely amazing. In fact, so amazing that I just had to repeat everything I said in conclusion here to emphasize it all, because repetition for effect and everything. And with that all being said and done, that's drawing this top 10 to a close. So I'll obviously be seeing you next Thursday for another top 10. And until the moment arises, peace. And be sure to remember that Blobbers is the best Skylanders NPC, and anyone who disagrees with me is wrong.